Hello everyone, I'm Syed Hassan Qasim. A very warm welcome to all of you on the second day of international webinar on psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life, organized by Labad School of Education, Sam Higginbottom University of Agriculture, Technology and Sciences. So this webinar will be recorded and shared widely, and you may feel free to submit questions anytime in the question box. So before starting this session, I request Reverend Dr. Richmond Samuel to invoke God's blessing on all the panelists and participants. Sir, please lead us in prayer. Over to Richmond, sir.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Indeed, it's a great joy to come together through online and to have this very, very important webinar on psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life. We know that our God is with us and we seek God's blessing as we begin the second day of our webinar. I would like to read from the Holy Scripture from the Bible, Psalm chapter 9, beginning from verse 7. It says, "The Lord reigns forever. He has established his throne for judgment. He rules the world in righteousness and judges the peoples with equity. The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in the time of trouble. Those who know your name, O Lord, and trust in you, you have never forsaken those who seek you. Sing the praises of the Lord, enthroned in Zion, proclaim among the nations what he has done. Let us look our Lord in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are thankful and grateful to you for this wonderful time and opportunity that you have given to all of us to be part of this webinar, the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life. We know, Lord, that this webinar, which has been organized by Allahabad School of Education, Sam Higginbottom University of Agriculture, Technology and Sciences, is a very meaningful webinar, especially when people in India and people in the whole world are suffering. There are a lot of distress, pain, anxiety, a lot of issues related to economic crisis, job crisis are coming up. Many people are getting depressed. But just now we have read from your word that the Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in the time of trouble. Lord, we know that when we come to you, we find safety in you. We find encouragement from you. We find strength in you, Lord. And we are thankful for that. And as this particular webinar is going to start the second day, we especially pray for the eminent speakers who will be delivering today the important theme. On this theme, we pray that you grant them wisdom so that whatever they share be a blessing to all our attendees, the participants, and the participants are able to gather what has been really helpful for them, and also they may able to share with others so that the crisis that is coming out because of the COVID-19 be addressed strongly. We pray, Lord, that we become hope for the world who is under great stress. We pray that the coronavirus be removed from the surface of this planet. It may not able to mutate. It may not able to increase.
Thank you, sir. Yesterday, we had a very fruitful session by three eminent speakers: Professor K.N. Bhatt, a social scientist from G.P. Pant Social Science Institute, Prayagraj; Remco van Satin from Perth, Australia; and Dr. Sister Priska, a psychologist and counselor from Rome, Italy. We could make out from the question posted by the participant that they were thoroughly enjoying the informative and inspiring session. So today we have four speakers with us: Professor Atikur Rahman from Malaysia, Dr. Paul Puducherry from Agartala, Tripura, Professor Ambalika Sinha from MNIT, Professor R.N. Singh from BHU Varanasi. I now invite Professor Marion Matthew, convener and dean, Allahabad School of Education, to welcome the panelists and participants.
Thank you very much, sir. I extend a warm and cordial welcome to one and all. On behalf of the university and the organizing committee, I am once again pleased to welcome you all to the second day of the international webinar on psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life, I welcome Most Reverend Professor Rajendra Bilal, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University, whose support and guidance always encourages us. I extend a warm and cordial welcome to Professor Dr. A.K. Lawrence, Pro Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Quality Assurance, whose enthusiasm and motivation has helped us in organizing this webinar. We welcome all the officials of the university, Pro Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor S. Bilal, Pro Vice Chancellor Planning, Monitoring and Development, Professor Herbert, Registrar, Professor Robin L. Prasad, Joint Registrar, Engineer C.J. Wesley, Directors, Deans, and Heads of the departments. I accord a cordial welcome to our eminent speakers for today's session. I would like to welcome Professor Atik Raymond, a great HR personnel from Malaysia, who has over 20 years of professional experience in training, development, monitoring, and evaluation. Being an expert on organizational psychology and research methods, he has taught in reputed universities. We welcome you, sir. We extend a warm welcome to Dr. Paul Puducherry, former head, Department of Education at Assam Don Bosco University, an excellent educationist and a motivational speaker. Dr. Paul has been a frontliner worker during COVID-19 lockdown, responding to the pandemic situation in collaboration with the government. We welcome you, sir. We welcome Professor Ambalika Sinha, Head Department of Psychology, Motilal Nehru National Institute of Technology, Prayagraj. Besides her vast teaching experience, she has been a keynote speaker at international conferences and convener of various workshops. Madam, we welcome you. I am pleased to welcome Professor Singh, former Head Department of Psychology, BHU Varanasi. He is another expert in the field of psychology who can freely share his ideas on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. We welcome you, sir. I accord a warm and cordial welcome to all the participants from India and overseas who have logged in to be part of this webinar. Before we continue with this webinar, I would like to brief you about Allahabad School of Education in just 2 minutes. We at Allahabad School of Education is happy to inform you that the Department of Teacher Education offers B.Ed, M.Ed, and PhD programs to the students in semester mode. And the Department of Physical Education, which is also under the Allahabad School of Education, offers Bachelor of Physical Education and Sports, BPES, Bachelor of Physical Education, BPEH, and PG Diploma in Health and Fitness Management. We endeavor to train and create quality human resource with a positive attitude towards learners, inculcating moral and social values in personal and professional life. We are happy to inform you that Schwartz B.Ed program attracts international team for on-campus recruitment. Some of our students were selected in February to work in UAE. Once again, I extend a warm and cordial welcome to all the speakers, participants from India and overseas. Thank you and have an enjoyable session.
And thank you, Sister Marian Matthew. The outbreak of coronavirus disease, COVID-19, has created a global health crisis that had a deep impact on the way we perceive our world and our everyday lives. So in the session, we will hear from our expert, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life. So in today's session, the first speaker is Professor Atiqur Rahman, He's PhD in Human Resource Development and registered Prince 2 practitioner. He's working as a Chief Operating Officer with People Talent Tech in Malaysia. He has over 20 years of professional experience in training and development, monitoring and evaluation, impact evaluation, and gender mainstream. He also worked with Asian Center for Organization Development, MI Planning Commission, ADB Assisted Rural Development Project, and many more organizations. We have taught organization development, HRD, research method in Air University and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Institute of Science and Technology, and conducted over 50 consultancy projects. So he is going to enlighten us on the topic psychological impact of COVID-19 on the lives of working women. Over to you, sir, now.
So indeed, great pleasure, pride and privilege. So can you allow me to show my screen?
Yes, sir, you can share your screen.
So it's showing that the host disabled the participant screen sharing. So I'm unable to share my screen because it's saying that the host is not allowing participant screen sharing. Can you please allow me to share my screen?
Just a minute, sir, we are allowing.
Yeah, I could see the face of Dr. Kian Bhatt.
Namaskar from
No,
India.
namaskar.
Welcome, Professor Atik. I am just.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice, indeed, great pleasure to see you.
It's my pleasure as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, Professor Atik.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, share screen.
Professor Atik, allow your video. Your face is not visible.
Yeah, face. I thought that first let me share my presentation, then definitely. So, is my presentation visible or not?
Yeah, it's visible.
Presentation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We can see your presentation.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So first of all, indeed, let me extend my thanks and gratitude to Professor Kian Bhatt and our sister for inviting me to this make presentation on this particular topic to this august audience. So what I thought that instead of coming up with some theoretical kind of knowledge, let me bring out real-time information from Malaysia. So what I did basically, I designed a short questionnaire and collected data from 111 workers, professional workers working in Shah Alam, that is Selangor state in Malaysia. And here are the findings which I'm going to present today. So the key objectives of this particular presentation as well as study are these ones before you. The first one, how COVID is affecting working women psychological well-being in Shah Alam, Malaysia, and how COVID is affecting women differently from it is affecting men, and how women are coping with psychological issues and are women handling the issues differently from men. So these are the questions which we will address in this particular presentation. So let me first show you the context so that you can understand from where this particular data is coming and who are there. So first you see here is the map of Malaysia, and you see this circle, red circle. So this is the state, Selangor state, what we call it. This is one of the biggest state in Malaysia, and very important strategically, economically, and from many other angles. Kuala Lumpur, although it is a federal territory, but it is what I would say located inside Selangor state. And the capital of Selangor state is Shah Alam, from where this particular data has been collected, which I'm going to report today to you. And you'll be surprised to know that the Selangor state alone is accounting for almost 1/4 of the GDP of the country. And total population of the state is hardly 6 million. So almost you can say total population of the country is approximately 30 million. Out of 30 million, 6 million are in this particular state. Secondly, most of the expats, they are living in this particular state. And as far as the diversity is concerned, you would see almost just over half of the people living in the state, they are Muslims, and 1/4 are Buddhist, and 1/8 are Hindus, and 4% are Christians, and remaining 1% belong to other religions. And here is the map. You would see the trend, how the COVID has impacted Malaysia. So from, you see the March, it's picked up, then coming down and going up. However, the situation has remained controlled. Now this is the current situation. So far, 8,494 people have been affected, and out of which 7,400 people have recovered. And approximately, you can say, that's 120 people, they have lost their lives due to COVID. As far as the Selangor state is concerned, so as far as the latest data, you can see, so the most of the COVID victims or affectees, they are concentrated in Selangor state, from where this data is coming out. And yesterday, only 2 cases were reported from Selangor state. So that indicates the situation is almost in control. As far as the gender segregated data of COVID is concerned, unfortunately, it's not available, not released. However, latest 100 cases, which have been released by the government, out of 100 cases, 20 are women. So that indicates that the women are less affected from COVID as compared to men. Now coming to key findings. Let me first tell you about the data. So if you see here, around, you can say the respondents were 111, and all from Shah Alam. Out of 111, 54 were men, 57 were females. And how data was collected? Data was collected from a forum, professional forum that is having professionals, experts, as well as locals. There's a close group of Shah Alam, what I would say, city. So from where this particular data has been collected. So in a way, you can say 51% are female, remaining are male. And data has been collected during the last 4 days, from 12 to 15. So it's not outdated data, it's just recent data collected. However, there are some limitations about the data. For example, age, profession, religion, social status, residential status, whether they are expat or they are local, such information is not available. And now coming to the, what I would say, findings. The first finding is, who is affected the most psychologically? So this question was asked from 111 respondents, and 41% of them, they reported that the women are affected the most, and followed by old people. So 21% people are affected, and then the other children and persons with disabilities, men, and transgender. So you would see, if you like to compare men with women, you would see the probability of getting affected psychologically. So men are less affected as compared to women, quite significantly. And here is, you see the difference in perception of the men and the women, how they are perceiving the who is being affected and who is not being affected. If you look at this particular, what I would say, graph, you would see that the both men and women, they have a consensus on one point that the women are affected more than men, right? So last, you would see the bar that is clearly showing for the men and the women. And the green bar is showing the responses of the females, and the brown bar is showing the responses of the males. And surprisingly, you would see here also at the top, for in case of the men, none of the male reported that the men are being affected psychologically. I mean, all those who reported that the men are also being affected, they are being affected more from the COVID psychologically. They're all females, right? And now coming to the second question was, what is the biggest psychological problem you're facing? So you would see here in this particular graph, almost half of the respondents, they indicated that the anxiety is the biggest problem they're facing, followed by depression, and then is the boredom, then the low self-esteem, and finally it is the loneliness. However, these responses, because these are the collective responses, now more interesting would be to see how men and women have responded to this particular question. Again, here in this graph, you would see that the green bar shows responses of females, brown bar shows responses of men or males. And here, again, you would see in both cases, men and women, the biggest psychological problem is the anxiety in the both cases. However, if you look at the other, what I would say, issues, for example, in case of depression, you would see, so the females or the women are facing this particular problem more than twice as compared to what the men are facing. And same is case with the loneliness. None of the male reported that they are facing the problem of the loneliness. All those who reported to have been facing the problem of the loneliness, they're all females. However, low self-esteem is what I would say, problem which has been reported by only men. As far as the boredom is concerned, it has been reported by both male and female. So it clearly shows there's some differences are there among male and female, that how they are facing this particular situation. Now, here you see, is there any positive effect of COVID also or not? So this question was asked from the respondents. All male respondents, they indicated single benefit of the COVID or single positive effect of the COVID. That is, they're doing all what they wanted to do, but were always facing problems of time. So that's why they were unable to, what I would say, do those particular things. So since the COVID is providing them adequate time, enough time, so that's why they are clearing backlogs. As far as females are concerned, so they gave two types of the responses. One related to benefit of the same thing, which was reported by male, and second was related to catching up with sleep. Right. So you would see here also some difference in what the issues is there. Third, or the fourth question was, what were the coping strategies or strategies you're using to cope with psychological strategies being used by male and female? Excuse me, are you hearing me?
Sir, we can't hear you. I think there is some technical problem.
He's reconnecting.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible now.
Yeah. Are you? Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. I was disconnected. Are you hearing me or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Fine. Fine. Okay. Fine. So let me share my screen again. So yeah, here we were. So here we are. So you see, so when we asked them that what are the strategies you're using to cope with psychological problems, they came up with responses presented here. So you see, the most important strategies they're using, they include religious activities, calling friends, using social media, cleaning up house, watching movies, book reading, and blah, blah, blah. But the most important are the four ones. Among them, religious activities, calling friends, social media, and cleaning up house. And watching movies, you can add that one also. When the same question was asked from men and women differently, so the responses came slightly different one. For example, so these responses are gender segregated responses. If you see here on the bottom, apparently religious activities were the top as far as the on overall data is concerned. However, here you see religious activity is less priority for male, but the most important strategy was most commonly strategy being used by females. So this is quite interesting. And almost second is also same case. So the calling friends through phones or through WhatsApp. So it is being used more by females than men. However, look at the third one. Third one is social media. You would be surprised to see it here. Social media is being used by men more than what women are using it as a strategy to cope with psychological issues. Some more interesting findings are available here. So, for example, book reading. None of the female reported that they are using book reading as a strategy to cope with psychological problems, but men did report this particular strategy. Similarly, meditations or yoga, it has been reported by only females. Arguing with anyone, fighting with anyone, it has been reported by only and only females, sorry, by males, men, not by anyone else. And some other differences are also visible. For example, cooking new dishes. So obviously it has been reported by more females than men. And exercise, physical exercise is almost same thing. So watching movies. So movies watching, so it is being used by male more than what females are using. So again, you see here patterns are quite different among male and females. Now come back to the conclusions. The first conclusion is coming out of all this particular data is that COVID-19 is negatively affecting psychological well-being of men and women, but it is affecting women more than what it is affecting men. Second, the biggest psychological problem is anxiety, and loneliness is being felt by uh, only women, and low self-esteem is being realized by only men. As the coping strategies are concerned, most common strategies being used by the women, they are the religious activities, but religious activity is not being used commonly by men as a coping strategy. And most common strategy adopted by men is the use of social media. Book reading is being used as a coping strategy by only men. Yoga and meditation are being used by only women. So these are the key conclusions which are coming out of entire discussions, and conclusion is there. So COVID is affecting differently men and women. Coping strategies are also different. However, there's a point of caution which has to be kept in mind. Sample size is too small and it is representing only single city, that is Shah Alam. So that's why results may not be generalized. So I stop over here. So if you have any questions, we can take up those questions.
Yes, thank you very much. It's over, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your interesting and informative lecture. And I think that participant will agree with me. And there are a few questions from the participants.
Yeah, please.
One question from Fakhruddin Ali Khan. Why women are facing more psychological problem as compared to men during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah. So there could be many reasons. One of the main reasons is that in Malaysia, women are also active participants in industries in other areas also. And as you see in Asia, we have male-dominated societies. So the women feel more freedom at workplaces than at homes. So that's why when they go back homes, so naturally their responsibilities increase. And secondly, fighting and other issues also creep up. And in case of due to male domination, so obviously such kind of issues definitely crop up. Domestic violence is one of the very key reasons.
Yes, sir. So one more question. The strategies to cope with religious activity is less priority for men than women. What could be the reasons?
Actually, perhaps women feel more insecure than men, although they share more responsibilities than men because they work at offices, bring money also. Men also bring in money. However, they do work at home also. So their social circle is also limited as compared to men. So that's why generally they have more tendency to have to be engaged more in religious activities than the men. Secondly, you would see social clubs and many other kind of forums, they are open to male, so they are less open to females.
Thank you very much, sir. So we also have with us Dr. Paul Padushiri, and I now invite Professor Marion Matthew to introduce him.
A warm welcome to you, Dr. Paul. It's good to see you online. As I already said earlier, Dr. Paul is a former head Department of Education at Assam Don Bosco University. He's a resource person for the Oxford University Press, who continues to teach, train teachers, administrators, and civil officials. Currently, he's working as a director, ASHA, engaged in research and training. Dr. Paul has conducted so many motivational workshops, and he's a person much sought after. As I said, he has been a frontline worker during COVID-19 lockdown, responding to the pandemic situations in collaboration with the government. He has been offering psychological guidance and counseling to the affected people. Dr. Paul holds a doctoral degree in education administration from Boston College, Master of Arts and Human Service from St. Edward's University, Austin, Texas, LLB and DLL from Symbiosis. He has guided and continue to guide doctoral students and has many publications. His specialized areas and engagements are communication, research methodology, education leadership, and pedagogy, and law. Dr. Paul, I'm sure with your vast experience of addressing huge gatherings of teachers, civil officials, the participants, and we, the panelists, are really waiting to listen to you, listen to your wisdom, your insights, your thoughts. Once again, we warmly welcome you, Dr. Paul. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sister Marion. Can I share my screen, please? Okay. At the very outset, I would like to congratulate Sister Marion and her team for organizing such a wonderful webinar. I did listen to lectures yesterday and they were great and inspiring. And I'm also grateful to you for inviting me to be on this panel. I would like to take a slight diversion in a different direction. The topic that I have chosen is the new normal, a post-COVID humanistic approach to education. COVID-19 pandemic outbreak has highlighted the fragility of mental resilience and the need for provision of coordinated psychological intervention to the nation. We need to strategize ways by which we can improve the quality of the mental health. Actually, the yoga campaign definitely has done a lot of good in maintaining body-spirit equilibrium. It is only by strengthening the psychological defense can nations continue to fight this long-drawn battle and secure success for the future. We see violence in the family on a rise. Media reports about suicidal death of many across the country is known. Last evening, I had a long conversation with one of the counselors. Without definitely revealing the identity, she was sharing with me the number in the rise of the sexual violence in the families, and which is a very painful reality during the time of pandemic. And there has been a high level of sexual aggression that is experienced in many families too. The extramarital relationship are also on a rise. All this indicate that pandemic and subsequent lockdown has impacted greatly the level of mental health. The data indicate that there is a wider spread of COVID-19 among the larger population. Couple of scholars seems to think that we may have more infections in the upcoming months. The question left is, how do we increase the resilience in individuals in this difficult and uncertain time? We live in a turbulent time with the chaos in so many parts of the world. COVID-19 pandemic has burrowed into the consciousness of our society, bringing out the best and the worst in people. The basic social fabric is founded on agreeing to exercise one's own freedom in such a way that no harm is brought to the other member of the society. My freedom extends broadly, and it ends when I can cause you harm or put you in a position where you are less safe than before. I wear a mask in public to guard against harming you in case there is something wrong with me, not necessarily to protect me from you. In this context, how do we instill and nurture the concern for the other? Not only the other, but also all the living creatures of the planet. One of the ways in which we can have this sense of human solidarity is by introducing into our education more and more humanistic ideals at every level. Now, it's also good to ask ourselves, what is this new normal? Until recently, we walked around with our face wide open. Now, when we come in public, we are already covering our face with a mask. We no longer move forward to shake hand or hug people. We wish them from a distance. And definitely, the way we are meeting today itself is a new normal. Probably 3 months ago, I would have traveled all the way to Allahabad to participate in this conference. And when I look at the number of the participants, probably it's almost 500, and which would have been almost impossible to hold into a hall to have a conference of such nature. So the new normal is becoming very different. That means we need to protect ourselves, and also we have to ensure the protection of the other, because we know community spread is always possible. So the way we are going to work, the way we are going to interact, the way we are going to study is going to be very different. This new normal, in a way, brings to the idea that knowledge has got itself as deinstitutionalized, and knowledge can be accessed anytime, anywhere across the globe. And again, our food habits are changing. Now we learned, even if we have enough finances, yet we need to learn to live our own life in a different way. So this new normal definitely going to be the norm for the 21st century. Now, what I would like to talk about is mostly on how do we induce into human being a greater resilience. That resilience only will come when we are able to have a humanistic approach in life to ourselves and to society at large. Now, this is not a new debate. Humanistic education first appears as a central subject for public examination and discussion in the second half of the 5th century BC. And its echoes can be heard in Plato's 4 early dialogues. Socrates and the sophists systematically and critically examine the basic question regarding the human virtues and the proper way of imparting them. Plato's writing systematic presentation of the educational concept, the principle of which have become the immutable assets of the classical humanistic education. We shall glance at them and ask ourselves, how can we apply this into the 21st century education so that we have people who are resilient to handle any eventuality of life? Actually, I have borrowed a lot of concepts from the book written by Raymond, an Israeli author, titled Enhancing Humanity. And he has summarized the whole concept into 10 points. And in one of the first points that he talks about is what we require is a concern for their human image and the nature of their character. And the other, life devoid of critical examination of the good, just, true, and beautiful is pointless and worthless. And the third point being human virtue, superior to all others and all embracing, is wisdom and is manifested first and foremost in knowing the good and the evil. Fourth point being human freedom, morality, and happiness are a consequence of expanding knowledge, and therefore intellectual education becomes essential. And again, talks about the human life. It becomes better when we are able to recognize our own identity and our own self-image and our own rootedness in morality. And again, it further goes into create an ambience wherein we are able to understand that human person is important. Along with the human person, all are creatures in our society or in our cosmos. So how do we do this? I thought some of the 8 characteristics that the teachers can think about is first to have that intellectual inquisitiveness. Our education has to more and more push into students or give that idea that they need to explore and construct knowledge. And this is possible by taking into consideration the cultural literacy, because we live in a world and in a nation which is culturally so different. And we need to be rooted in our culture. Intellectual curiosity, without being rootedness in a culture, cannot stand by itself. And also able to make a distinction between information, knowledge, and wisdom. Unfortunately, with the arrival of the social media, and particularly of Facebook and WhatsApp, a lot of people take information as knowledge. And we can see the amount of fake information or fake knowledge that's available. Again, the whole idea of computational thinking. How do you create a systematic understanding? And again, looking at the difference between the theoretical, the empirical, the practical, and the normative. That difference has to be made more and more clear, because what is theory is different from what is a practical application or a normative norm that exists. At this context, we also need to talk about the post-truth era that we are experiencing. That is why there is nothing called absolute or subjective or objective statements. These statements have to be looked at through our intellectual inquisitiveness and take into consideration the various skills that has been built into. And again, giving attention to every detail. So these are some of the 8 characteristics in a nutshell, wherein we can introduce a humanistic dimension in order to build a better resilience in people. Because recent suicide stories are painful, and we are not hearing one, but many. And many of the stories are not again being reported too. So that means we have to create a human solidarity, that we are fellow travelers. I think COVID-19 pandemic has leveled the entire world. Whether you're from the West, East, North, South, we are all affected with this pandemic. That means a greater human solidarity. Now that thinking would enable us to have a global engagement. And that comes to us the whole idea of social responsibility. Recognizing that we are stewards of this planet, that we have a responsibility to the other, to the nature, to the environment, and to my fellow human being. That means I need to be able to learn how to handle conflicts. Recently, we have heard about a lot of human-animal conflict, and there has been a lot of interesting narrative regarding the human-animal conflict that has taken place in different parts of India in particular. And again, we are talking about environmental sustainability. I think this morning there has been a report again talking about the earth getting warmer than before. Reasons we all know. Can we, being socially responsible, create a better environment for our future? Again, cultural diversity or cultural integrity. Every culture is different. I do not think there is a best culture or a worst culture. I have traveled across the globe, lived in different parts of the globe, and yet realized each culture has its own beauty and each culture has its own ugliness. Every culture is evolving. So there is no perfect culture that we can emulate into. Every culture evolves. Therefore, we should be able to take out the best of the culture and create a better integration, recognizing that our physical appearances does not really matter. The color of the skin does not matter. The level of our nose doesn't matter. But we are a human family. I think the moment we are able to recognize that human family, we are able to reduce the violence in our family. We are able to reduce the issues, the kind of war that is happening across the globe. And I think COVID-19 made us realize how rich you are, how powerful you are. This invisible virus can make you very vulnerable. And finally, we require a profound spirituality. Our mental state will not be strong without rooting ourselves into a spirituality. Now, that spirituality would happen only when we have a greater understanding of religion and a capacity to transcend that religion and to bring about a profound spirituality. Years ago, MIT Boston had a definition of a spirituality, and that definition was spirituality means interconnectedness, able to connect with the other. And I think the moment we are able to have that understanding, definitely our life become much more engaged, much more human, and we would have a better or a greater resilience in our life. That resilience would help us in our expression of our behavior, our interaction with the other. Maybe that I would just summarize some of these words in these words. Imagine a global human community in which you, we, and I are able to live in dignity and are treated fairly, have freedom from fear of violence and war, and can live in peace. Have freedom from want so that you do not ever have to live in such impoverished circumstances. You and your loved ones cannot have adequate care, food, water, shelter, health services, education, and other necessities for physical and emotional well-being, as well as a dignified life. Have the freedom of information, publication, speech, belief, and assembly, so that you can be free to be different and free to express open criticism of those in authority individually and as collectively. Have the responsibility to promote, to protect, and defend such freedom as those described above for yourself as well as for others when they are denied or under threat. Will work together cooperatively to make a world that their grandchildren will inherit, free of such problems as war, climate change, and economic disruption. Are we willing to be a member of such a human community? Unless we agree to that, I think the resilience that we will have would be much less. Thank you. Any questions?
Dr. Paul, for your very illuminating, insightful, and valuable and excellent presentation. The new thoughts, the new terminology that you have used has widened our horizons, and I'm sure the participants have really gained a thorough knowledge of the new normal way of living. There are one or two questions from the participant side which I would like you to address.
Sure.
Imtiaz Rasool from the University of Kashmir is asking you to clarify or differentiate between information wisdom, and knowledge.
Okay, excellent. We live in this 21st century, and as you know, earlier said, the world is flat. So whenever you take a WhatsApp or a Google yourself, if you put my name, Paul, you probably would get more than 2 lakh hits in a second. Is it all me? They're all informations. So what is required today is to have the capacity to access information, analyze that information, construct knowledge of that information, and create multiple solutions and choose the best out of it. That choosing the best solution is the wisdom. The knowledge is what you construct out of this information. Because there's so much of information, probably more than information, misinformation that's available. So information is the data that is available today. Because 21st century is powered by technology. It's fueled by information. It is driven by knowledge. Prior to, the world was driven by the price of the tea during the time of the British. Later on, it was a fossil fuel. Now it is information that is fueling the world, nothing else. So therefore, there's plenty of it. When you analyze and construct, you get knowledge, and that knowledge, again, discerned to your own internal authority or interiorization, then it becomes wisdom. And also becomes innovation. As Einstein said, knowledge is what is already there. Innovation is what comes out of that knowledge.
Thank you, Dr. Paul, for the excellent explanation of to clarify the doubt of India's Rasool. There's another question asked by the participant, that is the new normal. Your title speaks about the new normal. How do we develop a humanistic approach during this pandemic time?
I think, it's interesting. I'm basically an academician, but I got involved in making about 25,000 masks during this pandemic period. Because initially when the pandemic began, the masks were not available. And I have never done any tailoring in my life. But recognizing a need, I was able to mobilize resources and people and coordinate and create masks that is needed at that moment. Basically, what we are saying is trying to reach out. On Saturday, we organized a blood donation camp. My target was about 30 people. Finally, 54 people came forward to give blood. Again, reaching out to the other, the social responsibility. Being able to reach out to people in situation. When everything is normal, we don't need any help. We need help when things are not normal. Right? That's why it's called new normal. The new normal is basically, we are trying to say that what we had is different. And now world will be known as prior to COVID and after the COVID. So the COVID will become a kind of center point for our lifetime history.
Thank you very much, Paul. Dr. Paul, there's one more question from the participant.
Sure.
Since you are an academician, I think that's why the participants are more interested in asking a question. They are asking, intellectual inquisitiveness, how do we develop in students? It's from one of the teachers.
Okay, that's very, most of our children are fed spoon feeding. Unfortunately, that is why our education has become redundant. We have high level of unemployment. Now, with the post-COVID scenario, the skills that will be required will be totally different from the skills that is there at this moment. So we definitely need a skill mapping. Prior to that, when you talk about how do you develop that, basically trying to ask a child to find out the answer for himself or herself. The other day in a conference, I said a difference between a teacher and a professor. A teacher is measured by the success of the students. If the students succeed and get good marks, the teacher is good. But a professor is measured by allowing the students to go to the threshold of knowledge and transferring the entire responsibility of learning to the student. And therefore, the professor only points to the truth and the student does the swimming. Either they can gargle it or they can consume it. It's up to the student, entirely up to the students. So the intellectual inquisitiveness can be developed when we are able to help the child to challenge and think and ask multiple questions. Because as positivist thinking, we would say we can have different dimensions of the truth. That is why beautifully, The Flight to Freedom, J. Krishnamurti in his book, he said, truth is pathless land. No one can lead you to the truth. We can only point to the truth. That pointing is to be done by the teacher, and the work has to be done by the student. Only then we can have a greater intellectual inquisitiveness.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. It was indeed a very intellectual and insightful explanation that you have given. And I'm sure the participants have thoroughly enjoyed this informative session. Thank you for taking so much of trouble, and the belief after listening to you. The participants and all those who are connected with the participants will be working towards a global community, developing more humanistic approach in ourselves, and owning the social responsibility and taking care of nurturing others and improving the quality of life in others. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Thank you once
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
Enlightening and informative presentation. I now invite Dr. Shamla S. Masi to introduce our next speaker, Professor Ambalika Sinha from MNNIT, Prayagraj.
Thank you, Dr. Syed Hassan Qasim, for giving me an opportunity to invite or introduce Professor Ambalika Sinha for this session. Professor Ambalika Sinha, former head Department of Psychology, Motilal Nehru Institute of Technology, Prayagraj. He has 32 years of teaching experience and has taught various management and organizational behavior subjects to BTech, MCA, MSW, and PhD students. Professor Ambalika Sinha has published numerous research papers in various national and international peer-reviewed journals and presented scientific papers across the world and authored one book titled Interface with Stress, Causes and Preventions, and research projects also. She has been a keynote speaker in conferences at Singapore and Dubai and convener of various workshops, faculty development programs, and management development programs, and also chaired sessions at Hawaii, Singapore, and Dubai. Professor Ambalika Sinha is going to share her thoughts on an interface with lockdown stress. I am pleased to welcome you, ma'am, to be part of this 2 days international webinar and to address the crisis which is prevailing today. Once again, I welcome Professor Ambalika Sinha, ma'am. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm very positive of organizers of this international webinar, and I'm happy here and share my video. And hereby I'm presenting my PPT on an interface of lockdown stress. I hope you find it interesting and informative. This lockdown has occurred because of coronavirus disease, which has inflicted the whole world. And when you talk about coronavirus, it means some health problem which may be perceived as fatal. And if you are about to get it,
Ma'am,
you
your
may
voice
go
is
and die also.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Okay. Is it clear now?
We are not audible. Your voice is not
Is
audible.
it clear? Now it's clear. Okay. Srishti? Okay. I try to make it. Coronavirus caused by the recently found virus known as SARS-CoV-2, which is called coronavirus. This disease can spread from person to person through small droplets from the nose or mouth.
Unmute.
Yes,
Unmute your
pardon?
mic audio.
It's open. Audio is open.
Ma'am,
Yes, yes,
Professor Ambalika Sinha, ma'am.
yes, ma'am. Yes, what is the आवाज नहीं जा रही वहाँ. Wait. नहीं जा रही. Just a minute, ma'am. I'm trying to. Mic नहीं लगे. Not coming, ma'am. Hello. Is it clear?
Hello, yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it coming?
No, ma'am, no voice. Not clear.
Maybe some issues.
No, ma'am.
That is coming. PPT is PPT दिख रहा है?
Yes, yes.
PPT you can see. क्या करना है? माइक तो देख सही है और
See you, ma'am. Can't hear you.
Pardon?
We can see you, ma'am. We can see you, but not.
Wait. Am I audible now? Am I audible? Is it audible?
You can switch off your video and you can continue. I think it's a connectivity issue.
Now audible? Okay, continue. COVID-19. Yeah, it is a connectivity problem. An infectious disease is caused by the recently found virus called coronavirus. This disease can spread from person to person through small droplets from nose or mouth. When the infected person coughs or exhales, these small droplets land on surfaces, which means any person that touches surfaces and then their face can be infected. Coronavirus is a cause of great fear. Why? One, we don't know anything about it. There's unknown fear. Then it is perceived as fatal. It may cause death to a person who may become positive. Another view which has been given there are 4 types of quotients. One is intelligence quotient, second is emotional quotient, third is which is taught to everybody. But there's a fourth quotient called adversity quotient. That is preparing the persons to lead a rough patch in their life. and come out of it without facing any mental problems. Adversity quotient determines who will give up in face of troubles and may abandon their families. So in the current context of Corona, many professional, successful people are going through bouts of depression because they haven't seen the till now. So parents should adversities till now. So others, in treating the COVID-19 pandemic, the world is trying to build hospitals for treating the infected, banishing the COVID people from the deadly virus. Fields are converted into hospitals. Stadiums have been converted into hospitals for treating physically the various patients. But the second tent for psychological health is not being created. And this will be dependent, we are depending now also because of the spread of disease to such a big extent. Pandemic after effects or economic effects can be seen. There is lower GDP growth all over the world, which has come from 2.9 to 2.4. According to Bloomberg Economics,
To declare this
that full
is the international crisis after 34 regions of China had cases of infection.
Economics warns that full year GDP growth could fall to zero in a worst case pandemic scenario. The pandemic after effects. People may fear getting COVID-19 on the work floor and avoid work, hence may opt for absence from workplace. We demanded increase in absenteeism and people who are quarantined are very likely to develop a wide range of symptoms of psychological stress, moodiness, insomnia, stress, anxiety, anger, irritability, emotional exhaustion, depression, etc. Everybody is feeling vulnerable and anxious. You can see this: grief, anxiety, phobia, stress, depression, panic, post-traumatic stress. All these people will be effects will be large, widespread, and long-lasting. Alok Sareen, who's a psychiatrist at Sitaram Bhartiya Hospital. In general, based on past disaster management studies, at-risk groups for long-term mental health issues will be the who are on the front line, young people under 30, children, the elderly, and those in precarious situations like daily wage workers, shopkeepers, due to the uncertainty of the future. Global impact. Major part of the globe is facing the situation of lockdown and its intense negative impacts. It is not a tiny village or town or region, but 1/3 of the earth. If you ask people, how are your dreams these days? They may say they are unusually vivid and bizarre. So this is not an individual person's problem. It is a problem of many people. We have to act on these toxic effects so that the future may not be abnormal for various people. So what is the importance of psychological care? Learned persons of academics are of the view that psychological care of the persons is also required together with physical care. Psychosomatic symptoms are preventing people from maintaining mental and physical health. Mental health is as essential as physical health. Then only after lockdown finishes, people will be better able to cope with their lives. So what is the aim of psychological department? Prepare the persons to be psychologically strong enough to help themselves, create interest in the people to get knowledge about the expected psychological impact and reactions to trauma when lockdown is completely withdrawn. They should be made strong to face circumstances as they come and behave normally. Websites for overcoming psychological problems should be launched. Till now, because of online working, most of the persons have got used to interacting by mobile. So they may contact for psychological help. If people with problems contact, they should be helped in humanly manner so that others may also contact when they need help. Posters, banners in local languages may be posted on roadsides which facilitate operations which are planned by government and which are being implemented for their welfare. Prevent people from panic, from walking long distances as it occurred in Bombay, etc., for reaching their homes from where they are. We can have always online counseling. Please make psychological help available for preventing the negative impacts. For example, MNIT Hyderabad has introduced online counseling service for all students and employees of the institute, so that all are now prepared for facing the world normally when lockdown phase passes. Students are living at far off places and they have different types of fears, so they can get help through the psychological interaction. This approach should be used by all systems all over the world. Thank you. Shishti? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Could I be here? Heard?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Here?
Yes. Please continue.
Okay, so, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, 1 minute.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining very well with the help of the very well planned and well organized PPT. Thank you so much, ma'am. There are few questions from the participants. We would like to know the answer for that. Suprita Chawla, one participant, she's asking about how to develop effective domain of children during this COVID pandemic. Yes, ma'am, please. How to develop effective domain of children during this pandemic period. This question was asked by Suprita Chawla. Ma'am, can you hear me? Ma'am.
Ma'am, unmute your voice.
Unmute, ma'am. Unmute your audio. Unmute, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Audible?
Questions are here. Yes. Yes, ma'am. One girl is asking.
I'll answer.
One
You can speak now. You can speak now.
Yeah, first question was about children, how to adjust with children, make them adjust, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Effective domain, how to develop effective domain of children during this period.
I think you must have observed all round that children had been kept very busy with the classes, etc. So if you see that way, they are being logically prepared for the situation and made to feel that it is safer in the house than moving out or going to schools. So I think logically explaining instead of just telling them without any great details, that is harmful. You have to be logical. Give them a logical explanations, children will understand.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the relevant answer for the question which is put by the participant. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Over to Kasim, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have with us Professor R.N. Singh from Varanasi. I now invite Dr. Prem Prabha Singh to introduce him.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, Kasim sir. We are pleased to welcome Professor R.N. Singh. He is the former head and professor, Department of Psychology, BHU Varanasi. He has published more than 100 articles and research papers and 14 books in Hindi on psychology as an author, co-author on various disciplines of psychology, and developed 25 products highly useful for psychological testing and research. He is chief editor of 2 journals and co-chief editor of 1 international journal. He has supervised about 35 PhD theses on different disciplines of psychology and completed 2 research projects, one on road accidents and other on psychological consequence of eco-cultural perspective, funded by University Grant Commission, New Delhi. He has been associated with many social, cultural, and organizational institutions of public relevance, dealing with public problems, social awareness, cultural integration, social harmony, and creativity among children. He will be sharing us with his expert view on the topic psychological intervention for COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
We can hear you.
I am audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks to each and everybody, especially the organizing secretary and Professor Marion to invite me to share my views on this occasion. My dear friends, I shall be sharing my views on psychological intervention for COVID-19 pandemic. Ma'am, I have already shared my PPT. Can it be displayed? Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir.
I have already mailed my PPT. Can it be shared from that end?
Yes, yes, sir.
I think the participants will take deep interest in the PPT.
Yes, sir. You can share, sir.
Hello, are you activating it?
So are you able to share?
Okay. I have already sent the CD to your organizing committee member, Professor Marion, and I was expecting that it would be displayed on the occasion of my speech. However, if it is not possible, so I can present my views orally. Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Is something possible, or I should continue?
Sir, do you have the PPT with you, please? I'm not able to find out in my mail. It hasn't reached me yet.
Okay, no problem. Then my presentation will be oral. Don't worry. Don't worry, my dear.
PPT with you, is it not?
It was a very good PPT, especially meant for your program. but could not be shared. No problem. So, my dear friends, myself, Aryan Singh, sharing my views on psychological intervention for COVID-19 pandemic. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic was declared as a serious international concern after 34 regions of the China had cases of the infection. And very quickly, it affected the whole world. And now it is affecting the behavior, lifestyle, health of so many people in the world and causing so many challenges before the countries of the world. As the record of the WHO shows, more than 80 lakh people have been infected by COVID-19, and more than 4 lakh people have lost their lives so far. So this pandemic is really a shocking situation for us, and as a whole, it is affecting us in each and every aspect, not only psychological. If you go through the studies, data, survey reports, you will find that about 20% people of the world may face the job loss. And about 60 million people may fall below the extreme line of poverty. Suppose if it happens so what will happen to the humanity as a whole? Poverty in India is likely to be doubled. Global health havoc is likely to be doubled. Unorganized sector of the world, especially India, is badly affected. 40 million people are migrating from urban to rural areas, and this havoc is certainly a big challenge for us. And I think we should prepare ourselves to face this havoc of COVID-19. Besides physical, socio-economic aspects, this COVID-19 has created so many psychological problems, causing so many emotional problems. Especially the heightened emotionality due to COVID-19 is a major concern for the whole world and the WHO also. As the survey of WHO shows, about 16% people of the world are facing tension, insecurity, depression, etc. And because of this, people in the different parts of the country are facing so many problems that it is becoming difficult for the country and for the nations also to manage the mental health of people, of their citizens. But one thing is very clear. Just a minute for the, sorry for the break. The mental havoc that is being created by COVID-19 is tremendous, and our resources, I think, are not sufficient to meet the problem of COVID-19. As we have collected the data on it, emotional problem among people is increasing very badly. Suicide cases are rising. Depression cases are rising. Anxiety and despair deaths are also on the rising trend. As a whole, the world is facing a crisis for which the world is not psychologically ready to face it. Very good again. So, just I want to say the emotional.
Sir, can you see the PPT on the screen now?
Yeah. Now it is visible. Now it is very good.
Okay.
Actually, I was in search of the PPT on my computer, and you have made it available. Thank you very much.
On which slide are you, sir?
Okay. Yeah. I was saying my views, the different psychological problems like anxiety, mental health, suicidal depression, and heightened emotionality, you may open, heightened emotionality. It is increasing. And social and family conflicts are increasing, while well-being and quality of life of people, it is decreasing. It is a matter of great concern, not only for us, but for the whole world. Next PPT, sir. Next, please, next. When we compare the resources, psychological resources available in our country, and the problem which we have to face, we find a vast gap between the resources we have and the resources which we require for meeting the problem. Just you try to have a look that we are in need of more than 20,000 psychologists in the country, and we have hardly 1,000. We have 35,000 requirement of psychiatric and social nurses, and we have only 900. So this huge gap for the general condition in the country, even it was not sufficient. How we can meet the additional psychological health pressure caused by corona, that is a matter of great concern, my dear friends. Since we are human beings, so we cannot cry for the problem. We cannot narrate only problem. As human beings, it is our responsibility to manage the situation, even with the limited resources. In any crisis, any problem, stress or despair, one thing we must mind that we should take care of our mind. We should improve our mental immunity. A psychologist known as Mac Planck, who says that we should develop hardy personality. We should develop resilient personality while we are in crisis. This type of approach, this type of behavior provides us additional energy to meet the problem, to cope with the situations. So in this age of COVID-19 corona, we must try. We should not be guided by our negative thoughts. To meet the corona crisis and its effects, we should focus on the good things. We should develop positivity. We should focus on the things which are under control and enhance resilience. If we enhance resilience and focus on positive things, be sure our energy to meet the crisis will be doubled. Tolerance and cooperation, reduce tension, stress, anxiety, depression, and engage in exercise, yoga, and meditation will certainly be helpful for meeting the crisis caused by corona. Dear friends, as regards the strategy to fight the corona, to meet the corona crisis, one thing I would like to say, what we are lacking on the national level or international level, that is, we don't have developed so far a global response system. We have so many agencies which are assumed to be responsible for the public health, but all such agencies are not coordinated. You take the example of medical team, psychological team, social workers. Everybody is making effort in that direction, but the efforts are not coordinated. Efforts are scattered. As a result of it, we cannot get the desired result. So we have to identify the situation, the area, the zone, which may be more vulnerable to corona, and we'll have to improve our screening and psychiatric morbidities of the people. Using online intervention can be helpful in this scenario, as we are organizing the webinars these days. Use of CBT mindfulness-based therapy has been found to be very much useful, not only in general circumstances, in the days of crisis also. And we need to integrate the related agencies which are responsible or associated with the public health problem. More support for the frontline workers we need. And in our country, so there are so many people who treat corona or COVID as a stigma. So they oppose the frontline workers, and sometimes undesirable activities they also commit against the corona COVID. That is a very sorry affair in the country, and that we need to develop an approach which can make them aware that corona jo hai, that is a crisis, that is a disease, not a stigma, and people suffering from corona, people dealing with corona should not be stigmatized. And in this regard, one thing must be clear, whenever we are so very much stressed, excessively stressed, we should think of our mind. We should be kind to our mind. To have a better psychological satisfaction or relaxation, we take pause. We should take break from the content on the COVID news. We should make time for sound sleep and exercise. The very important thing which psychology has supported in this context, we should reach out. We should try to remain connected with our social supported, the family supported, and supports and relations. Social support and family relations provide us additional psychological energy, which is certainly helpful in dealing with the corona crisis. And my dear friends, if the situation goes beyond control, we must try to seek help from the people who are professional, who are entitled for this purpose. And at the end, I would like to say that this battle is long drawn, and we have to fight it even in future also. Strengthen the psychological defense system to maintain mental health, the future success for the well-being for the people of our country and the world in general. COVID-19 is a disease, my dear friends. People should not take it as a stigma and help those who are suffering. Thank you very much. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My lecture is finished.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution. It was wonderful to hear you. I'm sure our participants will be beneficial by your interaction. Thank you so much. There are some questions, sir. We would like you to address it.
Yeah. Invited.
First question is, does the cure of COVID-19 have a deep connection with psychological state of the infected people? I'll repeat, does the cure of COVID-19 have a deep connection with psychological state of the infected individual?
Yes, a person who is infected, anybody who is in crisis, anybody who is in problem, his psychology first of all becomes weak. Confidence is shattered. So in such a case, anybody who is suffering from COVID-19 or who is taking care of the COVID-19 cases should develop the faith that nothing is impossible in this world, and we shall be winning. We shall be in winning position, and we must keep hope. We must be optimistic. We must try for the better results, because if we surrender before the situation, we are going to get nothing. So we have to deal with it. We have to cope with it. Problem will be solved today or tomorrow. Must be optimistic.
Yes, sir. One more question: how to overcome the anxiety and fear factor?
Oh yes. Actually, there are so many approaches in psychology which can be used for removing the anxiety, stress, depression, and fear from the mind. A person who is suffering from that, a person who is gripped in that scenario, so he must get an interaction with a professional, a psychologist, or a professional counselor, and he or she should be given an opportunity of interaction and to share the views problems which he or she is feeling with the counselor. There is an exchange between the client and the counselor regarding the problem faced by the client. He may be suggested the ways how his irrational belief can be changed into positive and relief-oriented behavior, can be motivated, can be directed.
Sir, there is a question from Shika Chatterjee. She asks that please differentiate between pro-social behavior and altruism.
Actually, pro-social behavior and altruism both are interrelated variables. Both are interrelated variables. But there is a fundamental difference between the two. Pro-social behavior is any type of is any behavior which intends to help someone, which it intends to facilitate someone. But in return, it may expect something also from the concerned second party.
Thank you so much, sir.
Actually, thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Kasim sir.
I now invite Engineer C.J. Wesley, our administration, to brief us about what is the university perspective about the webinar. Over to Wesley, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Qasim. It was wonderful for us to witness this international webinar for the past 2 days with the topic, the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life. It was eye-opener for me to listen to the insight of various topics that have been covered by our learned speakers. On behalf of Sam Higginbotham University of Agriculture Technology Sciences, I express our sincere thanks to each and every speaker who have given their valuable time during this past 2 days and present their lecture. I also thank the organizers, the Allahabad School of Education, the Dean, the organizing secretary, the coordinators, and other people who have worked hard to bring up this webinar in this form today. I'm extremely happy to witness so much of participation. We had more than 1,850 participants have registered for this webinar, and they have been actively participating with the question and answer sessions and other aspects of this webinar through this the Zoom platform as well as through our Facebook Live. We are live streaming this whole webinar in our university Facebook handle as well as in our YouTube channel of the university. So you can always see the proceedings of this webinar readily available to you in the Facebook page as well as our YouTube. I congratulate each and every participant for joining us for this webinar. And I would like to inform that the participation certificates are already ready. I will show you the you can see in the screen. You can download your participation certificate readily from our university website. That is www.schuartz.edu.in/education webinar. You'll be able to download the certificate through the credentials you have used, like your mobile number, your email ID, which are used for participation or registering for this webinar. You'll be able to download your respective participation certificate. I wish you all the very best for all your future endeavors, and I hope with together we'll fight hard to overcome this pandemic, and in near future we'll be able to host webinars not through online portal but readily at our university campus. With these words, I once again express our sincere thanks to the Dean and the faculty members of Allahabad School of Education for successfully organizing one of the best webinars so far in the university. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Qasim.
Thank you very much, sir. I now invite Dr. Prem Prabha Singh to give the summary of 2 days international webinar.
अनम्यूट नहीं, इनका वॉल्यूम आप बढ़ाइए ना, वॉल्यूम कम करी होगी.
Full volume.
Yeah, I am audible.
Yes, yes, now you are audible, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I now invite Dr. Singh to give the summary of the webinar.
Thank you, sir. Now we are at the end of completing 2-day international webinar on the topic, the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life. Allahabad School of Education, Shuads has organized international webinar on 15-16 June 2020 on the topic, the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life, with the aim to stimulate a dialogue related to the impact of coronavirus disease. Professor Dr. Sister Marian Matthew, Head and Dean and Convener, started this webinar asking God's blessings. She also welcomed the chief guests, dignitaries, and the participants of the webinar. Then a brief introduction about the webinar and a brief profile of the university was presented by Engineer C. John Wesley, Joint Registrar Administration. The chief guest of the webinar was Professor Dr. A.K. Lawrence, Pro Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Quality Assurance. He congratulated the organizers and mentioned that university is being in service of the students and the people from last 110 years. He emphasized on coping strategies for students from this pandemic. Due to academic delay, teachers, parents, and friends should provide psychological help and design solution to overcome this crisis. Then keynote speaker of the webinar was Professor K.N. Bhatt. He shared his views on psychological impact of COVID-19 crisis, migrant workers and school children in context. He mentioned 3 types of crisis: ecological, global, capitalized disorder, and biological crisis. He also suggested that the way out is to provide job as per their skills, and teachers must share academic social responsibilities and maintain health and sanitation security in schools. Then our second speaker was Remco Van Centine, former director of Kemling Consultants, Perth, Australia. He spoke about some approaches to second tent of dealing with COVID-19. He mentioned the signs of trauma like anxiety, pain attack, depression, and suicide. He also mentioned the positive effects of crisis: fragility of life, quality of air and water is improved, increased recreational activities, and he concluded with the note to observe one's mental health and of those who are around us. Learn to forgive oneself, and we are not in our normal times. Now, third speaker was on 15th, Dr. Sister Priska, renowned psychologist and counselor, took the third session. She spoke about how to unlock your inner world in the age of COVID-19 pandemic, a time of stress and grief. She mentioned and suggested that to unlock the inner world, self-care, use of mask, establish connection, and restoring the connection is needed. And she also said that we miss physical stroke. Physical stroke means affectionate hug that are helpful to release cortisol and oxytocin, which reduces stress and decrease blood pressure. She also suggested some ways to overcome loneliness, to utilize the resources to engage oneself in various activities, recreational activities. Then the first day webinar was concluded by Dr. S.S. Masi by summarizing and proposing vote of thanks. Then day 2 webinar started with the word of God shared by University Chaplain Reverend Dr. Raymond Samuel. Welcome of the speakers and the participants was done by Dr. Sister Marian Matthew. Then first speaker of today was Professor Atiq ur Raymond, shared his views on psychological impact of COVID on the lives of working women. He has studied 111 workers, in which he found that more psychological affected are women than their counterparts. The most psychological impact was on anxiety, depression, loneliness, which was faced by the females, and only low self-esteem was faced by the men. Then there was also a positive effect for the men, was that they are involved in the activities which they wanted to do it, and strategies for coping with psychological problems were religious activities, then contacting to friends, cleaning house, and social media. Then second speaker was Dr. Paul Podesiri. He shared on the topic the new normal, a post COVID-19 humanistic approach in education. Then he suggested and emphasized to nurture the concern for others, humanistic approach to society, and to build intellectual education becomes also essential to construct knowledge, explore knowledge, cultural literacy. The need of the hour is human solidarity, social responsibility, and environmental sustainability. The third speaker of the day was Professor Ambalika Sinha. Her topic was an interface with lockdown stress. She mentioned the adversity quotient, which is a state of depression. We should train our children and individual to handle the adversity or adverse of the situation. Then fourth speaker with us was Professor Singh. He spoke about psychological intervention for COVID-19 pandemic. He emphasized on to improve our mental health and humanity to fight with psychological impact of COVID-19. This was a summary of two-day international webinar. Now over to you, Kasim sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I now invite Professor Sister Marian Matthew to present vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, sir. As we come to the conclusion of our two-day international webinar on psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life, I, Marian Matthew, on behalf of Allahabad School of Education, the organizing committee, and the entire fraternity of Shuats, is privileged to place on record our sincere gratitude to all those who are instrumental in organizing this webinar. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Almighty for His graces and blessings that has enabled us to organize this international webinar and make it a resounding success. I thank all the panelists, Professor K.N. Butch, Remco van Santin, Dr. Priska, Professor Atiq ur Raymond, Dr. Paul Podesiri, Professor Ambalika Sinha, and Professor Singh for their generosity in accepting our invitation to be part of this webinar. The guest speakers held the participants' attention with their expert opinion, creative ideas, and possible solutions to the psychological problems of COVID-19 pandemic. Their ideas were very refreshing and informative. Their thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path to deal with the problems of COVID-19 pandemic. My gratitude to all the speakers for gracing the occasion. I'm immensely thankful to the administration, our Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University, Most Reverend Professor Rajendra Bilal, whose support and guidance have always enabled us to give our best in whatever we do. I express my deep sense of gratitude to our Pro Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Quality Assurance, Professor Dr. A.K. Lawrence, for his enthusiasm of spirit and energy of the mind to guide us all through the preparation of this webinar. His constant availability and approachability is highly appreciated. Thank you, sir, for graciously accepting our request to be the chief guest on the inaugural day of the webinar. I would like to thank the Pro Vice Chancellor Administration, Professor S.B. Lal, Pro Vice Chancellor PMD, Dr. Herbert, and all the directors, deans, and heads of the department for their encouragement and appreciation. A special thank you to the Registrar of the University, Professor Dr. Robin L. Prasad, for his support and guidance. A special word of appreciation to Joint Registrar Engineer C.J. Wesley for his continued support and helping us out with all the technical support. He has been constantly available whenever we needed guidance. Thank you, sir, for your generous and selfless service to the organizing team. I thank Reverend Dr. Samuel Richmond for invoking God's blessings upon all of us. Thank you, sir, for your availability. I would like to thank all the participants for the enthusiasm, interest, and patience with which you attended all the sessions. Without your active participation, this seminar would not have been a success. I place on record my deepest sense of gratitude and appreciation to the organizing committee, Dr. Shamla Sunita Masi, Dr. Premprabha Singh, Dr. Syed Hassan Qasim, and all the other members of the working committee for your enormous cooperation, availability, and hard work in making this international event a success. As I conclude my vote of thanks, I would like to leave the participants with a thought that they could take along. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we have become aware of certain paradoxes in life. We have realized that we have more experts, but more problems, more medicines, but less wellness. We have been all the way to the moon and back, but have troubles crossing the street to meet our neighbors who are depressed and lonely, causing too many suicides in India. We have conquered outer space, but not inner space. We have learned to rush, but not to wait. Coronavirus has halted the entire world. It has been a leveler to the entire humanity. Today, the whole world is suffering because of coronavirus. There is isolation, lockdown, separation, abandonment, betrayal, even denial, which Dr. Friska spoke about it yesterday. Observe your mental health and those around you, as this was emphasized by Dr. Paul Puducherry, showing that concern and care to one another. We also witnessed a paradigm shift on teaching learning due to pandemic. Plenty of challenges, which must be turned into opportunities. I sincerely thank all the participants, organizers, the participants particularly, for your constant enthusiastic interventions and posing relevant questions, initiating a very fruitful discussions. Thank you, one and all. God bless you for your cooperation and collaboration in this international webinar on the psychological impact of COVID-19 pandemic on human life. Thank you.
Yeah, I request Professor Sister Marian Matthew for closing prayer.
God, our loving Father, we thank and praise you for your immense presence in our lives, and particularly your blessings that has been poured upon each one of us, the participants, the panelists, the organizers, and the entire university personnel. The help that we have received from you, the inspiration and the insight, how to direct the course of this webinar. You have been a wonderful source of inspiration to us. We thank you, God, for your great grace. And we believe that in you we have our being and our strength. And we know when we turn to you that you are there to help us always in our life. And we believe that you are our hiding place and our shield. We hope in your word. It is so wonderful to have you, Lord Jesus Christ, as our hiding place and shield. We know the tremendous support and the inspiration that we have received from you all through the preparations and the execution of this international webinar. We ask your choicest blessings upon all the participants, panelists, the university officials, and all the organizers. And we surrender them to you for your care, for your protection, and from this COVID pandemic. We make this prayer in the holy name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Thank you, everyone, for making this event successful and for the feedback and suggestion about this webinar. The link has been shared on your email. Thank you. Have a nice day.